time a Republican president rolls out a budget, they make the same statement. It's just, it has gotten a little worse this year. I think one newspaper in New York accused us of wanting to kill over 1 million people, which is just outrageous. We take care of the truly needy. We make sure that folks who need help get it. They told me that I should try and make news this morning, so let me see if I can make news.
Okay.
Republicans care about poor people. Republicans care about kids. Republicans care about the elderly, just like many Democrats care about national defense. And this rhetoric, this demagoguery just doesn't help the debate at all.
So you looked at this budget, or the president looked at this budget and says, listen, we cannot continue to spend this much because we're about $500 billion every year over budget. And we're worried about the long-term deficit because all of our revenues go into interest payments, which is only going to grow. So from that point, it's all going to be tightening your belt all around the country. So you're not increasing food stamp programs. You're not increasing spending on Social Security and Medicaid, although you're not touching it. Should we change the mindset?
Actually, we increase spending on Medicaid. We increase spending on a bunch of different things. We just don't increase it as fast as Congress wants to.
Wait a minute. So you do care about the elderly? You do care about the poor? You do care about kids?
Remember, in Washington, D.C., if you spent $100 on something last year and you spent $104 on it this year, they call that a cut. Which is just outrageous.
Let's talk about the CBO and the health care program that came out of the House. You rated yesterday. You're going to save money, but you're also going to cover less. What was the biggest surprise about the CBO?
I think that the CBO predicted it would be warm and sunny here today in Washington, D.C. So that's not, it's not. If you can see behind me, it's pouring rain here. They've been wrong on so many things. They said that I think 24 million people would be covered on Obamacare by this year. They missed that by 12 or 13 million people. They said that Obamacare would be making money for the government by now. They missed that by several tens of billions of dollars. Look,
23 million will lose insurance, true or false?
Yeah, false. I mean, it's just if you look at the methodology, they assume that folks who are on Medicaid, which is free, will choose to get off Medicaid when the mandate goes away. Now, you tell me if that sounds like the real world.
Sure. Well, one of the other things is if there's not, and I know the CBO looked at it, millions of Americans are not going to buy insurance if they don't have to, because they don't want to.
Well, and under the current system, which is what always gets lost in this, we sort of compare the new bill in the House or whatever comes out of the Senate to this ideal of what people want Obamacare to be. Let's look at what Obamacare really is, which is, I think the data came out yesterday. The average increase across the whole country was over 100% increase in premiums. Many states had more than a 200% increase since the inception of Obamacare. That's what we should be comparing it against, not this ideal of what some folks at the CBO or in the Democrat Party want Obamacare to be.
What about people who say Republicans are sabotaging Obamacare?
Obamacare is doing a great job of sabotaging itself. We told you, I've been on this show for years, you've been talking about it for years. We knew Obamacare wouldn't work. There were many of us who thought it was designed not to work, to try and push us towards a single-payer system. And all that's happening is, a friend of mine once said that the biggest lie in politics is when people say they hate to tell you so, they told you so, but we told you so. This is exactly what Obamacare was going to do.
And look at Kansas City, Blue Cross Blue Shield there. They had to pull out yesterday because they've lost $100 million. They cannot sustain it. All right. Mick Mulvaney, thank you very much for joining us from a warm and sunny Washington, D.C.
Thanks, y'all.
He's got to run to the place. Everybody's over in Europe.
No, I think Reince Priebus is there.
Actually, so. That's it.
Couple.
Okay.
All right, let's hand it to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Good morning.
Good Thursday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. A bombshell report revealing the Obama administration allowed illegal and violent MS-13 gang members into the U.S. Senator Ron Johnson says Customs and Border Protection documents show 16 teenagers caught crossing the border in 2014 admitted to be a part of the deadly gang. But that didn't stop the feds from placing them in community homes across the country. Immigrant children poured into the U.S. and received benefits under President Obama. The new report comes as we learn the brutal MS-13 gang is turning Long Island, New York, into a homicide hotbed. In just the past 16 months, the violent members have been linked to 38% of murders in Suffolk County. The police chief says 400 gang members are terrorizing their county. The average age of those arrested, 18. The most common crime, assault with its signature weapon, a machete. Very frightening. Well, the little girl who was dragged off a dock by a sea lion is now being treated for a rare disease, a possible rare bacterial infection.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
The little girl suffering a superficial wound, marine experts have warned she could be at risk for a sickness called seal finger that could lead to the loss of a finger or limb. The group on the dock was feeding the animal moments before the attack. They deny these claims and are considering taking legal action. Let's look at your headlines as we get close to the top of the hour. You guys know what that means. I'm going to go change.
Yeah.
That's right. Get ready.
The mud run
Yeah,
obstacle
we're going to go
course.
sue a seal.
All right.
I can't. That video is
Every time I see it,
unbelievable.
I know. Well, there will be plenty of mud because Janice's outside, and Janice, it's a little rainy.
It is a little rainy. I'm borrowing an umbrella. Where are you from, my friend?
France.
You're from, tu parles français?
Oui.
Well, merci beaucoup for watching Fox and Friends. Let's take a look at the maps, and I'll show you where the rain is. We had the potential for severe storms last night across the southeast, and the potential again later on today for parts of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. It is raining out here, but our SEALs at this event will be running without umbrellas. They are so brave. 61 here in New York City, 62 in Cleveland, 92 today in Dallas, and 87 in Albuquerque. A quick look at your Memorial Day forecast. Looks like it's going to be another rainy one for the East Coast, but we will certainly keep you up to date. Merci beaucoup. You want to say hi to anybody at home in France?
Hello, America.
Nicely done. All right, back inside.
All right. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Guten Tag.
Janice.
Not French.
Right. That's my native tongue, German.
Okay.
All right. Meanwhile, he's connected to deadly terror attacks. So why is this guy getting honored in a parade? Wait until you hear how that decision is being defended. Story next.
And she's the newest member of the Fox and Friends team, and we're putting Jillian through the ringer this morning. That's the ringer right there. She will be squaring off against sailors on the intense obstacle course that's in town for Fleet Week.
That's the hardest part right there. How do you
It's
pick
all
the leg
hard.
over that?
When they have pain, they turn to Australian Dream. Here's why they love it.
Australian Dream doesn't burn, and there's no odor.
There's real medicine in there. It's effective pain relief.
I bought it because of the money-back guarantee. I keep buying it because it works.
If you're one of the faces of arthritis, get Australian Dream. It's effective relief for arthritis backed by the empty jar guarantee. Australian Dream, real medicine, trusted relief.
Well, sponsors marching away from next month's Puerto Rican Day Parade in New York.
The event slated to honor the leader of a terror group.
But you got a New York City councilman claims he is a freedom fighter. Rob Schmidt is live on the plaza with a different take on that. Rob.
Yeah, guys, today wouldn't be the day for a parade, but it's not. This is about 2 weeks away, but JetBlue, the Yankees, the New York Daily News, all pulling sponsorships from next month's Puerto Rican Day Parade here in Manhattan. This after organizers decided to honor Oscar Lopez Rivera. Now, Rivera spent the last 35 years in prison. His sentence commuted by President Obama in the last days in office. He was recently set free. Rivera was a member of the FALN terrorist group fighting for his native Puerto Rico to be freed from American control, wanting the territory, that island, to be a communist island. FALN bombed more than 100 businesses and government offices in the 1970s and the 1980s here in the United States, including the bombing of Francis Tavern in Lower Manhattan in the financial district. That was an attack that killed 4 people and injured dozens more, many of whom were just having dinner that day or walking on the sidewalk. Rivera was convicted of helping to organize the bombs that were used in more than 100 attacks by this group. Last night, Tucker Carlson argued over this topic with a New York City councilman who supports the decision to put Rivera at the front of this year's Puerto Rican Day Parade.
You obviously don't follow this in any detail. You're glomming onto the guy because he's a fashionable communist, but he's also a terrorist.
Nelson Mandela was viewed as a terrorist till 2008.
But this is, are you really comparing him to Nelson Mandela?
It was somewhat of a painful back and forth. Councilman Williams says Rivera is not a terrorist. He calls him a freedom fighter. Tucker reminded Williams that Puerto Ricans are free to vote to secede from the United States. It doesn't have to come down to terrorism to get away from this country if they so desire to. The NYPD commissioner is not going to be marching in the parade here in about 2 weeks, but our mayor will be. So there you go. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Shocker that the mayor's going to side with them. Really, he fits that description. Thanks, Rob. Meanwhile, she's the newest member of the Fox and Friends team, and she's going to put herself through a test. The Bone Frog Challenge this morning. Jillian Mealy teams up with Dan Rooney and some prestigious sailors as they celebrate Fleet Week here in New York City.
But first, let's check in with Shannon Breen for a preview of what happens on the channel starting in 11 minutes.
I remember when you guys made me do that.
Yes, indeed, you did. You were a good sport.
Cue up the video. All right, guys, it's a big day, as you know, for the president as he heads to NATO to press for more action on terrorism in the wake of the Manchester attack. What we're learning now about the bomber, his family, and their alleged ties to ISIS. Plus, that CBO score is out on healthcare. GOP leaders calling it a win. Democrats say it is devastating and will help them win in a landslide in the 2018 midterms. We're going to talk with Senator John Barrasso and Congressman Jim Jordan about where healthcare reform does or doesn't go now. They're going to join us, and live coverage of every minute of the president's overseas trip. We'll take you there live. We'll see you at the top of the hour.
On terror. As Trump pushes NATO to step up defense spending, how will world leaders respond to the president? Krauthammer and Gingrich weigh in tonight on The Story.
New York City is celebrating Fleet Week with the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard.
Yeah, so today we're going to enjoy putting...
Enjoy
this as we go through the Bone Frog Challenge. And it looks like it's going to be Jillian Mealy who has gotten the short straw. That's right. Competing against special people.
She'll be squaring off against Dan Rooney, the founder of Folds of Honor. And joining us right here, we've got Brian Carney, Navy SEAL and owner.
All right, so get everyone hold on over here.
I'm going to come over here,
right,
Jillian. I'm going to be pulling for you.
Brian, back up so that they can get through their stand. Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, and you're off. Woo!
This is the muddy part.
Awesome.
It's raining, so it's a little extra muddy today.
We'll be a 7-foot wall, helping each other over if needed.
It's easily 6'7".
Wow, Dan making it over the wall. Jared's going to help Jillian get over the wall. Pick you back up, Jillian. You got it. There you go.
Stronghold, which is our rope climb into curved monkey bars.
Yeah, it's super. You know what, Brian? It's super slippery right now with the rain on that wall. That's tough.
It adds an added effect.
Very nice. How many focus? No matter what, you're going over things and under things.
Exactly. It's test all fitness levels. It's functional fitness, walls, carbonates. It's all very military style obstacle course.
How many of these events do you host across the United States each year?
We're doing 10 right now across the nation and growing to about 20.
And if anybody would like, they're watching right now and they're thinking, that looks like fun. I'd like to do it. You have a website?
Yeah, bonefrogchallenge.com.
Is there a chance Jillian will survive?
She's looking good right now.
There's always a chance, Brian.
She's about halfway through.
Great.
Yeah, this is only a very small portion of our course. We have over 40 obstacles on the real course. 3 miles, 8 miles, and 11 mile different distances.
Or different levels of people at different stages in their lives.
Exactly. So
this is about teamwork too, right?
Absolutely. It's 100% about teamwork. So if you are having trouble in an obstacle, your people that you're running with help you over it. So it's all very doable stuff.
Now, if she gets through this, will you put her on a mission, put her on a Black Hawk, and just have her go get a terrorist?
We'll have to bring her to the range first, but after maybe 20 minutes, I think it'll be all right.
She needs a gun and a monkey bar. Dan Rooney is doing it absolutely right. It is a tie into the final event. Dan is getting to the top of what looks like a metal pyramid. And let's see what happens. Jillian, he is so close. He's just a little ahead of you. Dan Rooney, the founder of Folds of Honor, is 3 feet away. Oh, it looks like there we go. What about Jillian's decision to go face forward?
It's 50-50. I would leave it the other way. That's fine.
You did it.
So Jillian,
There you go. Congratulations.
Jillian, there you go.
How was it, Jillian? Oh my God, I'm out of breath.
Yeah, there you go.
That's really hard. It's so slippery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jared.
During that run, Jared, the Giants drafted you.
How you feeling, Dan? You okay?
We are awesome.
Thank you.
Great Memorial Day weekend, indeed. Good job.
you.
All right, Fox and Friends. We'll step aside when we're back in the rain in 2 minutes.
the people, have been speaking out and taking back our rights. We, the people, have been holding government accountable. Now, Steve Hilton gives us the global view on the worldwide populist movement. Join the next revolution, premiering June 4th.
Tomorrow, country music star Bill Vassar is going to kick off our All-American Summer Concert Series presented by Keurig.
And everyone, welcome to join, but if you want to email us, friends at FoxNews.com, the first 100 responders who spend the morning hanging out in the VIP section.
That's right. You'll even get to meet some of your favorite Fox News anchors.
And
we're just hoping that tomorrow it's not.
Yes.
Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for coming down and getting wet. Great job, Jillian.
Tomorrow.
That is fantastic. Good morning, everybody. We are waiting one of the most pivotal moments of President Donald Trump's first trip overseas as commander-in-chief. The president meets with his fellow NATO leaders later this hour. You will see that live, and he brings with him a strong message urging our allies to pay their fair share for their own defense and to double down in the fight against terror. And this trip has really turned into a call to arms. So we will watch it along with you at home. Good morning. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome to America's Newsroom. And Shannon, good morning.
Good morning. I'm Shannon Bream. President Trump once called NATO obsolete, but today he's expected to reaffirm America's commitment to the decades-old alliance. And one of the things that everyone's going to be watching for today, the moment when President Trump and British Prime Minister Theresa May see each other and likely speak about the Manchester terror investigation. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live in Brussels. All right, good morning, John, or good afternoon to you. What do we expect from the meeting between the president and the prime minister today?
Shannon, good morning to you. This is not an official bilateral meeting. They'll likely meet on the sidelines of NATO. They'll also be together at dinner tonight. There could be some uncomfortable moments because we are told that Prime Minister Theresa May is going to confront President Trump over intelligence leaks regarding the Manchester bombing. For example, the name of the bomber was released by U.S. officials before it was released in the UK, and the UK wasn't ready for that to happen. Then hours later, after a warning was sent out, photographs, forensic photographs of the parts of the bomb and some other things were put out in the New York Times. So UK officials are said to be infuriated about everything that's been happening. And Theresa May, in a statement earlier today, said, quote, "I will make it clear to President Trump that the intelligence that is shared between our law enforcement agencies must remain secure." The BBC reporting that the UK has temporarily, at least, stopped sharing that intelligence with U.S. officials. Theresa May is also going to ask NATO to get more involved in the coalition against ISIS, and on that point, she and President Trump see eye to eye. The president meeting just a short time ago with the new French President Emmanuel Macron, in which the president said that, this is our president, said that terrorism was going to be on the agenda of that bilateral meeting yesterday. Upon his arrival here in Brussels, the president met with the Belgian Prime Minister, Charles Michel, and listen to what the president said during that meeting.
When you see something like happened 2 days ago, you realize how important it is to win this fight, and we will win this fight. It's a horrible situation. What took place is horrible, unthinkable, but we will win 100%.
And don't forget that Belgium has got its own problems with terrorism. There was the bombing at the Belgium airport. That was in May of 2016. November of 2015, we learned that one of the people who masterminded the concert massacre in France had Belgian citizenship. There's the Molenbeek neighborhood in Brussels as well, which is said to be a hotbed of extremism. So the people here in Belgium get it. The question is just how far will NATO go in joining this coalition against ISIS? Rex Tillerson said on the Air Force One on the way over here, Shannon, that they are really more of an observer status right now, but he hopes that they will get more involved militarily in the fight against terrorism. Shannon?
Well, John, do we know if Russia will be on the agenda for discussions today as well?
It's certain to be, and certainly it's coming up in some of these bilateral meetings. The president's first meeting this morning was with Donald Tusk. He is the president of the European Union Council. They talked about a lot of things. Tusk came out of that meeting saying that they share common ground on a number of different issues, but they do appear to part ways in their perception of Russia and Vladimir Putin. Listen to what Tusk said after their bilateral meeting.
My feeling is that we agreed on many areas, first and foremost on counter-terrorism. But some issues remain open, like climate and trade. And I am not 100% sure that we can say today, we means Mr. President and myself, that we have a common position, common opinion about Russia.
Yeah, we can't say that we have a common opinion about Russia. I'm told that Tusk is not as optimistic in his assessment of Vladimir Putin's intentions and policies as President Trump appears to be. So it's a lot of common ground here at this NATO conference, but some stark differences as well. And those will probably be reflected in the private conversations coming up between all 28 leaders. Anna?
I expect some of them will be tense. All right, John Roberts, live for us in Brussels. Thank you.
Let's talk about the objective today right now for President Trump. Chris Stirewalt here to analyze. How are you, sir? And good day to you.
Living the dream, Brother Bill.
Nice. What is Trump's mission today at NATO?
Well, in a very practical sense, his mission at NATO is to show that he can direct the activities of the organization. The American president always takes, if not the lead role, a lead role in directing this most important, most successful treaty organization in the peacetime history of the world. And he, I'm sure, wants to be able to say that he can fill that part too, despite his criticisms of the group in the past. And a good marker on that would be if coming out of this, they say, yes, it's time for NATO to become more engaged as it relates to ISIS, as it relates to Syria and Iraq.
Yeah, the NATO Secretary General pretty much said that in the op-ed that he penned over the past 24 hours. So, yeah, you're very right about that, Chris. Watch the response from these leaders today out of this meeting. Newt Gingrich wrote a piece, okay? Washington Post, here it is. Part of it, he concludes, foreign leaders and the American people alike can see in this trip the core of a new reality-based foreign policy. He's making the case that the media has missed the point of this entire trip, with the contrails running back through Saudi Arabia suggesting you have to fight this as well, not just us. Your view on that and how a trip like this can change a commander-in-chief?
Well, I think the trip changes the commander-in-chief, but also the trip changes the context that he's operating in. Look, the concept of Donald Trump as devil, as a handmaiden to Vladimir Putin, all of the caricature of Trump in the European press, so the perception of him versus the reality of him. Because as you know, these people who are going to spend one-on-one time with Trump in these meetings, he'll be very charming with them. He'll say how much he likes them. He'll flatter them. They will walk out and they'll say, he's not as bad as we thought he was. Maybe this guy's okay. Yes, in terms of reshaping global politic and all of that stuff, great. Time will tell. What matters, I think, most on this trip is that these folks, these actual human beings, get to meet Donald Trump, and they get to find out that he's probably not as bad as they read about in the paper.
Well, those personal relationships are true at every level of life. Let's see how that goes. In the meantime, President Obama, the former president, is with Angela Merkel today in Berlin. Now, what's that trip about? And there is a suggestion that he's trolling the president while this trip in Europe continues. What do you think?
Little trolling going on here. I think Obama loved this stuff. They loved him. He was Europe's favorite American president, at least maybe since Woodrow Wilson. I don't know. But he was very well liked by these leaders. And he and Merkel had a good rapport, despite a couple of blow-ups over the course of his 8 years. They had a very good rapport. I think that this is nostalgia, maybe a little bit on Merkel's part. Would give Obama the benefit of the doubt. He's not making a public spectacle of it. But yes, I'm sure there is a little bit of trolling going on here for his successor.
Big gathering at the Brandenburg Gate. You remember what happened there 9 years ago. We'll bring you pictures in a little bit here. Chris, thank you. Chris Stirewalt there in Washington. By the way, Merkel has an election in September, too. So, she's fighting along with her political life as we go. She will be there at NATO later today as well. Thank you, Chris. Talk to you real soon. 8 past now.
Well, a stunning turn of events only hours before the polls open in the Montana special election. Republican candidate Greg Gianforte charged with assaulting a reporter. He claims a reporter tried to push a phone in his face, leading to this incident caught on audio tape.
You were waiting to make your decision about health care until you saw the bill and it just came out. And what you thought
we'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah, but there's not going to be time. I'm just curious if you
Okay,
have
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you got
Sick and tired of you guys. The last guy that came in here, you did the same thing. Get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. The last guy did the same thing. You were the guardian?
Yes, and you just broke my glasses.
The last guy did the same damn thing.
You just body slammed me and broke my glasses.
Get the hell out of here.
If you'd like me to get the hell out of here, I'd also like to call the police. Can I get you guys' names?
Hey, you gotta leave.
He just body slammed me.
You gotta leave.
Live in Bozeman, Montana. Alicia, you were there. What can you tell us?
Hi, Shannon. Well, I can tell you that I was in the room with Fox News photographer Keith Rayleigh and Fox News producer Faith Mangan. We were the people who you could hear Ben Jacobs ask, "Can I get your names?" We were standing there setting up to do an interview with Mr. Gianforte, and we had arrived early to set up. We were in a room adjacent to a volunteer barbecue for his campaign that was about to happen. And then he came in. We started talking, introduced himself. We started talking about just chit-chat about Bozeman in general. When Ben Jacobs from The Guardian came in with his recorder, placed his recorder right up to him about here, and started asking him questions about the CBO report on the Republican health care bill. And you heard what happened from there. I myself was standing about 2 feet from both Gianforte and Jacobs when this happened. There was a table in between us, but I did see the whole thing when Gianforte grabbed him by the neck, both hands, slid him to the side, body slammed him, and then got on top of him and started punching and then yelling at him. And Ben Jacobs eventually kind of scrambled to his knees, grabbed his glasses, and you heard him talk about his glasses being broken and that he wanted the police called. Now, I need to tell you that the Greg Gianforte campaign has released a statement saying that Jacobs aggressively shoved the recorder in Gianforte's face, and, quote, Greg then attempted to grab the phone that was pushed in his face. Jacobs grabbed Greg's wrist and spun away from Greg. Now, as a result from all of this, 3 of Montana's largest newspapers have rescinded their endorsements of Mr. Gianforte: the Helena Independent Record, the Missoulian, and the Billings Gazette. Now, Mr. Gianforte, we're told, is expected to appear in court sometime between now and June 7th. That's the most specific they can get. But the reason we are here, Shannon, in Montana is for the special election for the sole seat in the U.S. House of Representatives for the state of Montana, a seat that was vacated by Ryan Zinke when he was appointed to the Interior Secretary for President Trump. This is the election today, and polls close here at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. But Montanaans have been voting for about 4 weeks now through absentee voting and early voting, and they have done that, and the majority of them have already turned in their ballots. Shannon?
All right. Alicia Acuna, again, a witness to those events last night. Thank you for your report.
12 minutes past the hour now. Chilling new details about the Manchester killer, where he traveled in the days and weeks before Monday's massacre, as authorities now link him to a global terror network. Have an update on that, what we're learning today, and then there is this.
I want to be fair to the president. I'm not going to accuse him or anyone of spying until I have all the unmaskings, until we have an end to the leak investigation.
That was Trey Gowdy yesterday, giving former President Obama the benefit of the doubt. Now, there may be new ammo in the unmasking controversy, putting it in a whole new light. Our panel is going to look at the evidence.
That is a privilege to be able to request that a U.S. person's name be unmasked. And I want to know who's making the request, what is the evidentiary basis of that request, and if it's late in your tenure, like the day before you leave office, that should send off alarms and sirens in your head as to why that person did it.
Okay, that's Congressman Trey Gowdy reacting yesterday here in our program to the allegations of NSA abuse. According to declassified documents, the Obama administration carried out illegal searches on Americans for years and only acknowledged the snooping in the final days of the administration. Jessica Tarloff, Democratic strategist, director of research, Bustle.com. Molly Hemingway, senior editor of The Federalist and a Fox News contributor. And ladies, good day to both of you. Let's get to the issue here, Molly. How serious is this when the NSA internally says it was supposed to reform the program and never did?
Yes. The Obama administration routinely violated the Fourth Amendment rights of who knows how many Americans against illegal search and seizure. They did this 5 years. We're learning about this 5 years after the court had already warned them to clean up their act. And they only announced that they hadn't cleaned up their act at all on the way out. We have way too much information being collected on Americans, it being disseminated too widely, and this is all related to the unmasking scandals of how information can be used for political or other nefarious purposes. This is not good.
We're not at the bottom of it either, are we, Molly?
This is the start of it.
Okay, Jessica, how serious is this?
I think it's very serious, especially if there's attention paid to it. That's where I wonder, what the blowback of this, meaning that I don't know how far this story is going to go when everything is talking about Trump and Russia, and that we have mounting evidence that there was collusion between the campaign and Russian officials, and that's really what's
There's collusion?
Yeah, there are people every day. There's another drip about
under oath the other day. Is that what the former CIA director John Brennan said?
No. I'm not just talking about John Brennan. I'm talking about links between people.
Well, he was asked about it and said he doesn't have it.
Sorry, I'm really not trying to argue the collusion argument. I'm trying to say this is very serious. And if it gets play, which I believe that it will, there will be huge blowback on the Obama administration about it. I'm just saying that right now our focus news-wise has been on this.
Noted. I want the two of you to listen. The day the lawyers for the NSA reported the abuse, the former president was on Jimmy Kimmel and said this about the government and whether or not Americans can trust what it does. That day, watch.
People expect the government to monitor this enough to protect them from bad guys. But they worry that if government is in there too much, then who's going to protect them from government?
He's right on point. In April of this year on MSNBC, Susan Rice said this about all of that.
The allegation is that somehow Obama administration officials utilized intelligence for political purposes. That's absolutely false.
All right. Molly?
Well, the power to surveil is an incredible power, and it has to be. There have to be safeguards in place so that it's not abused. I mean, even this program, this was a Bush-era program. We learned about many of the flaws during the Obama administration. Now the Trump administration is claiming that they're ending this particular collection program. But in general, I think Americans are losing confidence in their intelligence agencies to do really anything other than leak for political purposes or cause problems with our allies. We have news out of Manchester that the Brits are no longer sharing information with us because our intel people are leaking to reporters about the Manchester bombing. We need an intelligence agency that knows what its job is and stops being so political.
What Susan Rice said was utilized for political purposes. We do, as she said, that's false. Jessica, we do not know that answer entirely just yet, but we do know the NSA was repeatedly collecting information against procedure, and perhaps it was illegal. It was against the law.
I think that the stats look like it's about 5% were illegal seizures, which is tremendous when you think about that, across the nation. And as I said, I think the Obama administration will have to answer for this. They've declined to comment at this point, but certainly dumping the information the day before you're leaving office looks suspicious. They had been warned before. The FISA court was scathing about it, saying that it was a lack of candor, I believe was the term they used, from the Obama administration, and also from a president who said he's going to run the most transparent administration in history. It doesn't look good.
To both of you, Rand Paul calls it an abuse of power, and you know where Rand Paul has stood on this issue from day one. Jessica, thank you. Molly, thanks to you as well. We'll see where it goes, okay? 21 past the hour now. Thank you, ladies. Shannon.
Well, disturbing new information on exactly what the bomber was doing and where he was traveling weeks and days before that horrific terror attack in Manchester. More details coming in. We've got them straight ahead.
I think it's very clear that this is a network that we are investigating.
Taking on terror. As Trump pushes NATO to step up defense spending, how will world leaders respond to the president? Krauthammer and Gingrich weigh in tonight on The Story.
New details pouring in on the deadly Manchester terror attack. The suspect's brother and father now in custody linked to terror networks, allegedly. Meantime, more arrests following overnight raids, as well as new information on how freely it appears this terror suspect had been traveling between Libya and Europe in the weeks and the days just before the attack. This is a surveillance photo of the suspect in the days before the bombing. Authorities say this is Salman Abedi just after he bought the backpack he likely used in the attack. Let's bring in Carl Higbie, a former Navy SEAL and author of Enemies, Foreign and Domestic, a SEAL's Story. Good to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right. The longer this goes on, the more we get reports after the fact from people who were concerned about the behavior of the neighbors, the imam. And apparently, a recruiter had been operating out of this area and bringing in a lot of disaffected young people from this neighborhood. Why wasn't this caught?
And was known. And look, I'm the first person to hit the Islamic community on policing their own. And guess what? This is one of the few times that I can actually say they did police their own. They told authorities many, many, many times that this was a problem. This mosque had recruiters, that there were people doing suspicious and nefarious things around them. And the authorities in the UK did nothing. We've seen this time and time again. Now, in America, you're protected by certain liberties, but in Great Britain, they don't have the same constitution as us. They have 3,500 people under surveillance that are considered threats. Why are these people still in the country? They brought this on themselves in the UK, and if they don't do something about it, it's going to be real bad.
I mean, this young man, the suspected bomber, he was born there. I mean, his parents came apparently as refugees trying to escape the Gaddafi regime. Yeah. But they were going back and forth.
By the way, we helped them overthrow. They come here, and now he's radicalized against the very people that helped.
Well, that's the thing, is that, you know, there's all this talk about a former law enforcement official there in Manchester said these people are here, but they feel very isolated from the community. They don't fit in. And it's a perfect stew, essentially, for ISIS to say, come with us.
Well, here's a reality check, is they feel isolated from the community because they isolate themselves. They move into similar communities, and it happened here in America with everybody coming from, Ireland, from Germany. Everybody came here, did the same thing, but they've isolated themselves in these communities. They've made no attempt to assimilate to the surrounding population. It is unbelievable that they feel that they are isolated because of some external force. No, they're doing it to themselves.
Well, what about these countries that are now requiring people who do come into the country to take classes that teach them the history and the culture of that country, the language, and require them to take some of those classes? I mean, you know, there are those on the left who will say that is insulting and oppressive to their native cultures. Right. What do we do?
I think if you come to America, you're American and nothing else, and American foremost. And I think that what this is we don't have people who respect the culture of the United States of America. I mean, you have people like Katy Perry, for instance. I mean, this woman has said that, we need to give them hugs.
Hug it out.
Yeah, hug it out. Go to hell, Katy Perry. Hold it, hold one of your concerts in Syria and see how that goes. She is not, I mean, these people fundamentally don't understand what is going on here.
But you don't think she's coming from a bad place. You just think they don't get the threats.
Oh, I think they're just completely benign, and they don't understand any of this, and they don't want to understand too. And that's why I'm so strong against these celebrities who speak out, say, we can fight this through love, or, it's not really violent. They don't mean it. We are putting the political correctness of the Islamic culture over our lives of our citizens, and we need to stop that immediately.
Quickly, I want to ask you about the assumption is that the bomb maker was more sophisticated. It wasn't this 22-year-old kid, and that person is still out there and on the loose. Mm-hmm. How do they track them down? Will there be signature things from the device that went off?
Again, we're dealing with a culture, in Germany and the UK and places like that, where they're more concerned about how it's perceived, if it's perceived as anti-Islamic, than they are if it's going to protect their citizenry. And now, this is a very sophisticated device. This is not something some guy threw together in his bathroom. This is something that is a wider threat, and they need to start looking at these things. And I don't see any initiative from the European Union on UK and places like that doing anything about it.
Well, we know that the raids continue, the arrests continue as they try to track down the rest of potentially what they're calling a network or a cell there in Manchester and beyond. We know it'll be part of the discussion in NATO as well for the president.
I sure hope they wise up.
Carl Higby, good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bill.
World leaders now arriving at NATO, moments away from President Trump's arrival. You'll see that in a moment here. Live pictures as they roll in right now from Brussels. What's at stake in today's meeting? What is President Trump's message? We await his arrival live there on the blue carpet.
Plus, fresh ammunition for both sides of the aisle as the healthcare battle moves to the Senate. A full breakdown on that report just out from the Congressional Budget Office and the potential political impact in moments. Wyoming Senator and Dr. John Barrasso will join us with his reaction.
It's going to happen. That doesn't make it so. These are people with biases, just like you and me. These are people that have their own opinions.
Got gas, acid? Try Phazon Gas and Acid.